In the past few months, I've taken a short break from the keyboard hobby because I was focusing more on PC builds and wanted to grow that side of the business. And also, I just didn't see a lot of keyboards or group buys that interest me lately, so I didn't feel like it was just worth making content. However, I just started to jump back in to see what's new, and at the same time, I wanted to document my current collection for archival purposes and also share with you guys what I'm using in my main rotation. So in this video, I'll be covering the specs of each keyboard build along with their sound test, and also briefly talk about the new boards that I have coming in. So let's dive in. Right now, I have 6 keyboards in the rotation, and I'm going to start with the least used all the way up to my top 3 main. Starting off is the Keychron Q8. The reason why this is the least used is because this is more of a practice board for me to get used to the Alice or Arisu layout, as it's not my main preference, but something I've always wanted to try out. It's an entry-level board, and I kept it pretty stock and minimal when it came to mods, as it wasn't something I wanted to spend a whole lot of time and money on. The only thing I spent extra for was the FR4 plate, which was an extra $15, as that is typically my main preference for plates over the default aluminum. My Q8 is in silver gray, FR4 plate, kept the stock stabilizers as is, hot swap PCB with lavender switches that are lubed and filmed, keycaps I topped off with Cat Arctic. I also tape modded the PCB just to improve the sound a tiny bit, as this was a quick and easy mod to do. Here's the sound test. There's really not much to say about this entry-level board that costs just around $200 for the bare bones. I mean, it sounds and feels like an entry-level board for that price range. There's nothing special. It's not great, but it's also not terrible either. And it's got some hollowness and pinginess, and there's also some rattle in the default stabilizers. On that note, normally I do buy my own Durock or Owlab stabs to replace the stock stabs. But for this one, I just think it's not worth the extra $20 to $25 for better stabs, especially when this layout is not my main preference. I'd much rather save my better stabs for mid or higher tier keyboards. Moving on to the Mode 65. The reasons why this comes in at number 5 is because I do have a preference for TKL layouts. Anything smaller isn't quite my thing. But I also put it above the Keychron Q8 because this is just way better build quality in pretty much every aspect. It's not even in the same ballpark. Different price range, different tiers, completely different keyboards aside from the fact that they are both 65%-ish range layouts. Build specs is a black aluminum top case, black aluminum bottom case, and I also got the shiny brass bottom case as well that I switch out from time to time. Shiny mirror back piece, carbon fiber plate, solder PCB in stack mount, which uses the silicon dampener because I wanted to reduce the tiny bit of hollowness I hear when it's built in isolated top mount. Durock Teal 62-gram linear switches that are lubed and filmed, Durock V2 stabilizers, and GMK Hammerhead keycaps. Here's a sound test. Coming in at number 4 is the Mode 80 2022 Win Keyless version in navy top and gold bottom. This is my silent keyboard, and it's at number 4 because my preference is currently TKL Win Keyless, but silent keyboard for me is situational. The internals include an FR4 plate, solder PCB, alpaca silent switches lubed and filmed, Durock V2 stabilizers, plate foam and pour-on base, GMK Blue Samurai keycaps for the navy and gold color theme. Here's a sound test. Now, number 2 and number 3 come really close to each other. They often switch around quite often for me. It's the Space 80 Apollo by GrayStudio and the Mode 80 2020 version. They are pretty comparable in terms of feel and sound signatures, especially with what I had built into them. There are certain things that one does better than the other, but they are pretty close. The Apollo is a lot more fun to play with, move around, and easier to pick up as there are grooves built into the design around the case of the keyboard. The Mode 80 is a bit harder to pick up because you really have to clamp your fingers onto it and lift it up as it's just flat around the sides. Aesthetically, I like the Mode 80 better and it's something I can rock on any desktop theme, but the Apollo gives me something fun to look at and only fits in certain desktop themes. In terms of sound, the way I built both made them pretty similar except the Apollo is slightly deeper. I will also add that the spacebar on the 80 sounds much cleaner than the Apollo. I want to say it's probably due to the fact that the GMK Moto 2 spacebar I have is a bit loose on the stem and does wobble a bit, which does affect the sound when pressed. The PBT light mode keycaps from Mode Designs hugs the stem on the switch and stabilizers pretty tight, and there isn't any wobble at all, so I would say that's why it sounds cleaner and solid. Specs on both keyboards will be dropped in their sound test. I also want to note that all the heavier keycaps like the brass and metal artisans I'm using are on vintage MX Black switches with heavier spring weights. I actually really like the sound on my Mode 80 2020, especially with the tight keycaps that don't wobble, and I will have to say it's hugely also because of the Water King V3 switches. I have both the 55 grams and 62 grams, which are manually lubed. I don't think even my well-controlled sound test environment and DD D3 Pro microphone actually does it justice. In person, it sounds like somewhere between a bubble wrap and a snappy water drop is the best way I can explain it. It's lovely. By far, Water King V3 switches are my favorite non-long pole stem linear switches. I've reviewed the 55 gram ones on my channel, so you can watch that if you'd like. I like them so much I recently bought the 62 gram ones, and I will talk about them further also in another keyboard video I have coming up, so stay tuned for that. My favorite at number 1 is the Mr. Suit by Owlab, and it's because this keyboard does the best job all around overall in terms of sound, feel, looks, and design. Now, Owlab carried over the sound signature from the Jelly Epic into the Mr. Suit, which is 75% into the TKL, and TKL is my preference, and I love it. Now, the Jelly Epic, if you know, you know. Unfortunately, I was not a fan of the Jelly's aesthetics. Mr. Suit is classy. It looks nice from top to bottom and left to right. I can fit it in any desktop theme. I love shiny and heavy brass weight. It's also lifted with space under both sides, so it's easy to pick up and move. Sounds great, I really can't say more. I got the black and gold with chamfered edges. hot swap PCB, all foam installed, tungsten switches also by Owlab, which are currently my favorite long pole stem linear switches, dark mode PBT keycaps by Mode Design, silver polished brass Artisan Escape keycap by Escape Lab, and the Artisan Rose keycap that came with my Mr. Suit package. Here's a sound test. I really like the Mr. Suit, and I got the hot swap PCB in this because I do want to try out some other switches on this board without desoldering every single time. Like the Water King switches in my Mode 80 that I love so much. I haven't tried those in this keyboard yet. I have a Sonnet by Mode Designs coming in, as well as a Frog TKL by Geonworks. I'll have dedicated videos on building those keyboards, so please stay tuned for that. Anyways, that's all I have for this video. Questions and comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.